There's been a tremendous response to the interview I did last week with Lord Sumption, the former judge of the Supreme Court in Britain, but also an acclaimed author and medieval historian. The substance of that interview, as you might recall, was the profound loss of freedoms during coronavirus. He made the point that the British state exercised coercive powers over its citizens on a scale, he said, never previously attempted. Tellingly, of Australia, Lord Sumption said, quote, because he's been here on a visit, "The ease with which people could be terrorised into surrendering basic freedoms, which are fundamental to your existence, came as a shock to me in March 2022. Unquote. Lord Sumption argued, in Britain as in Australia, that he had witnessed, quote, the most significant interference in personal freedom in the history of Britain. Unquote. Well, all of us would nod our heads in agreement that during coronavirus, the ease with which we were being terrorised into surrendering basic freedoms was something utterly alien to the Australian way of life. Australians surrendered against their will. But surely one of the most central freedoms that must be honoured is the relationship between the patient and the doctor. As an individual, you must be free to consult whom you wish and equally free to work with your doctor in determining what medication or what course of action should next be taken. But during coronavirus, government interfered with that relationship. The Queensland doctors were threatened with jail if they offered certain medical prescriptions to the patient, even though the patient was willing. And if you're a broadcaster, you would be cancelled if you mentioned the conclusions of medical experts who disagreed with what we were being fed by politicians. Well, this brings us to the Australian neurosurgeon, Dr. Charlie Teo. Last year, the New South Wales Medical Council imposed a series of conditions on his practice after jealous informants made allegations that Charlie Teo gave patients false hope. Dr. Teo has dedicated his 35-year career to the most difficult brain surgery cases that other neurosurgeons can't or won't take on. Charlie Teo has raised more than $51 million for brain cancer research. He's established the largest tumour bank in the Southern Hemisphere. But he's been virtually banned from performing life-saving operations, potentially life-saving operations, they don't all save lives, in Australia. I mentioned last month that 6 well-respected surgeons from around the globe have given references to the Medical Council of New South Wales in support of Dr. Charles Teo, including the Stanford University Medicine's Associate Professor of Neurosurgery. I quoted one Sydney man who said, after his daughter was given her own death sentence, and I quote, "I challenge any of Dr. Teo's critics to tell me what they would do if they received the diagnosis we did. If they were told this is the end of the road for their mum, daughter or sister, they'd come running to find Dr. Teo."